It starts out as a stiff neck, a simple stiffness that you try to ignore. But this is different. This cold, heavy pain in my neck is not a muscle spasm. It is a sign. There was an old saying in my family, one that I always dismissed as nonsense. If your neck hurts like the devil's own claw, child, you pray hard. I thought it was just folklore. I was wrong, so wrong. It is not a cramp. It is a calling card, and it means he has found you. Listen to my story, and for God's sake, if your neck starts to hurt like this, pray. It was a Monday. Mondays, right? They come with their own special kind of misery. I'd had a long day at the office, spreadsheets getting mixed up, the usual pointless meetings, nothing out of the ordinary. I got home, microwaved some leftovers, and plopped down on the couch, ready to zone out in front of some mindless TV. That's when I first noticed it. A small twinge, right at the base of my skull, where my neck meets my shoulders. I figured I had slept the wrong way or maybe spent too much time hunched over the keyboard. I rolled my shoulders, stretched my neck. It eased for a moment, then came back, a dull, gnawing ache. No big deal, I thought, just one of those things. But as the night went on, it didn't go away. In fact, it got weirder. It wasn't just an ache anymore. It wasn't just an ache anymore. It was a cold ache, like a piece of ice was pressed against my vertebrae. And there was a strange feeling of pressure, like something heavy was resting there. I tried a hot shower, thinking it would relax things. It didn't help. If anything, the steam made the cold spot on my neck feel even more pronounced, more alien. I took some painkillers, the strong ones I keep for migraines. Usually they knock out any pain right away. But this just laughed at him. The throbbing continued, and now there was a new sensation. A faint, barely audible popping sound whenever I turned my head too quickly, like tiny bones rubbing together. It wasn't loud enough for anyone else to hear, I guess, but I heard it, and it was deeply unsettling. By the time I went to bed, I was genuinely irritated and a little worried. This wasn't normal. I propped myself up with extra pillows, trying to find a comfortable position, but the cold pressure on my neck was relentless. It felt like an invisible hand, just resting there, firmly. I told myself it was just a pinched nerve, a stress thing, that it would be gone by morning. I tried to ignore the way the shadows in my room seemed to thicken just behind my head, out of sight. I told myself it was just the painkillers making me drowsy, making me imagine things. I was wrong, so terribly wrong. Morning wouldn't bring relief. It would only bring confirmation of a fear I hadn't even consciously acknowledged yet. The morning brought no relief. If anything, the pain was deeper, colder. It felt less like a physical ailment and more like a presence, a weight. I called in sick to work. There was no way I could concentrate. I spent the morning pacing my apartment, trying every stretch, every self-massage technique I could find online. Nothing worked. The pain was a stubborn, cold knot, and the cracking sound, more frequent now, like dry leaves sliding across the pavement. I was about to give up and try to see a doctor, though I dreaded the inevitable diagnosis of "it's just stress" when it hit me, a memory. Faint, like a half-forgotten dream. My grandmother, Nona Emilia. She was from the old land, a small village nestled in the mountains, steeped in folklore and superstitions that she had never quite shaken off, even after decades here. I remembered being a child, maybe 7 or 8, complaining of a stiff neck after falling from a tree. Nona Emilia looked at me with unusual seriousness. She gently touched the back of my neck, her fingers surprisingly strong, and said in her thick accent, "Be careful, little one. Not all pains come from falling.
Some are a touch, a claim. If ever your neck aches with a cold fire, like an ice spider weaving its web in your soul, and if you hear the bones whisper when you turn, then something has noticed you, something that walks in the shadows and collects what it pleases. So you must pray, not just any prayer, the old prayers, the ones of protection, or it will crawl up your spine and make a home in your head. At the time, I had been terrified. Later, I had forgotten it, dismissed it as one of her old world scare stories. But now, a cold fire, bones whisper, something has noticed you. It fit. Everything matched. My heart raced. I wasn't just stressed. This wasn't a pinched nerve. This was Nonna Amelia's warning. This was folklore come true. I tore through my apartment, looking for I don't know what, an old Bible, a crucifix, anything Nonna might have left behind. I found nothing but dust and forgotten trinkets. I went online, desperately searching for the specific prayer she'd mentioned, for any information about this collector or shadow walker she'd hinted at. Most of what I found were generic ghost stories, local legends from their area about spirits riding their victims or causing unexplained illnesses. But one obscure forum post, buried deep, mentioned a neck whisperer, an entity that clung to the back of the neck, slowly draining away vitality or will. Its presence announced first by a cold, nagging pain, and the sound of neck bones clicking like dice. The post was old, the user long inactive. The only advice it offered: pray without ceasing, for he detests the sacred, and never, ever let him see your fear. As darkness fell that day, a new kind of fear set in. Not just fear of pain, but fear of what Nonna Amelia's words, what that forum post implied. I locked my doors, checked the windows, pulled the curtains tight. It felt like I was bracing myself for a siege. The pain in my neck, which had been a cold, constant throb, began to throb. A sickening, rhythmic beat in time with my own racing heart. It felt like something was on my neck, its icy grip tightening. I tried to distract myself. TV, music, a book, nothing worked. Every sound in the building, a neighbor's footsteps, the hum of the elevator, the groaning of the pipes, felt like a prelude. The cracking in my neck was louder now, a dry, skeletal rattle every time I moved. And the cold, it was seeping into me. I piled on blankets, but it wasn't normal cold. It was a dead cold, a cold that came from within the pain itself.
Around midnight, the whispers began. So faint at first, I thought I was imagining them, like the rustling of dry leaves or sand shifting. But they were there, just at the edge of my hearing, coming from behind me, always behind me. I would turn my head sharply, a searing pain shooting through my neck, but there was nothing, just shadows. And the whispers would stop, only to start again moments later when I looked away. Then came the feeling of being watched. It was overwhelming, a palpable pressure in the room, as if the very air was thick with invisible eyes. I couldn't shake it. I felt exposed, vulnerable, like prey. The pain in my neck grew, a burning, icy agony. I remembered Nonna Amelia's words. Then you must pray, the old prayers, the ones for protection. I wasn't a religious person. I hadn't prayed in years. But in that moment, alone in the dark, with the whispers and the watching and the unbearable pain, I was desperate. I didn't know any old prayers. I just started, muttering the Lord's Prayer, the Hail Mary, anything I could remember from my childhood.
My voice was a shaky whisper. It felt foolish, useless. But as the words fell from my lips, as I forced myself to focus on them, on that tiny spark of remembered faith, something happened. The whispers seemed to recede, just a fraction. The oppressive feeling in the room lessened, almost imperceptibly. The pain in my neck didn't disappear, but the icy, burning intensity eased just a little. It wasn't much, but it was something, a small relief. But it was also terrifying. Because if prayer, even my clumsy, desperate prayer, had an effect, then what Nana Amelia had said was true. There was something there, something that had noticed me, something that detested the sacred. And as that realization took hold, the chill in my bones deepened, far deeper than any physical shiver could reach. The first night of the true haunting had begun, and I knew, with a certainty that tasted like ash in my mouth, that it was far from over. The small comfort that prayer offered was short-lived. It was like poking a wild animal with a stick. It retreated for a moment, then returned with renewed focus. The following nights were worse. The feeling of being watched became a physical weight, pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. And the pain in my neck, it was a living thing now, coiling, tightening, a constant cold reminder of my unwelcome watcher. I began to see him, not clearly, never clearly, but glimpses, a flash from immense height in a dark doorway just as I turned, a shadow that stretched too far, too thin, cast by no discernible light source, always just behind me. When I turned quickly, my neck screaming in protest, there was nothing, just that persistent, deadly cold, and the feeling of his amusement.
The neck whisperer, the forum post called him. I clung to that name, that scrap of information. I spent hours online, scouring even more obscure folklore sites, occult forums, anything that might offer a clue, a defense. Most were dead ends, the ramblings of lunatics, but I found a few recurring motifs. It was an ancient entity, one that fed on fear or life force, anchoring itself to its chosen victim through a point of physical contact, the back of the neck. It was said to be patient, relentless, slowly breaking its prey's will before, well, accounts differed on the before what. None of them were pleasant. My prayers became a lifeline, the only weapon I had. I repeated them over and over, a desperate litany against the encroaching darkness. Sometimes it worked. The shadows would retreat, the crushing weight on my chest would ease for precious minutes, but it would always return. And sometimes I reacted to prayers with anger. The whispers turned into guttural hisses. Objects on my bedside table rattled. The cold in the room became unbearable. It was a battle of wills, my faith wavering against whatever ancient and malevolent thing had clung to me. One night I woke, the pain in my neck a blinding agony. I couldn't move. I felt a crushing weight on my back, pinning me to the bed. I could hear his breathing, slow, raspy, very close to my ear. And the smell, like damp earth and something indescribably rotten. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I was paralyzed. All I could do was pray in my mind, a frantic, silent torrent of words. And then I felt it, a touch, not a hand, something colder, sharper, probing at the base of my skull, where the pain was most intense, like icy needles. I struggled in my mind, reciting every prayer I knew, and slowly, the pressure eased. The cold receded. I was able to move again. I staggered out of bed, gasping for breath, my neck burning. The room was empty, but the indentation in the pillow beside mine, it was still there, large, heavy. It had been in me. It had touched me. And the fear that gripped me then was a new kind of terror. It wasn't just about being watched. It was about being claimed. Going to tire and go away. It was settling in, making itself at home, in me. The neck whisperer. Nana Emilia's collector. It wanted more than just my fear. It wanted my neck, my spine, my head. It wanted me. I couldn't just hide anymore. I couldn't just pray it would go away. It was clear it wouldn't. The folklore, the forum posts, they all hinted at a showdown, a reckoning. That if I didn't fight back with all the faith I could muster, it would, well, climb up your spine and make a home in your head, was how Nana put it. I didn't want to find out what that really meant. So I waited, not cowering under the bed this time. I stood in the center of my room, the pain in my neck a cold fire, and I prayed. Not just the memorized prayers of childhood. I prayed with my soul. I begged, I pleaded, I commanded, in whatever holy names I could remember, that he would leave me. The air grew colder. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed to deepen, to solidify. And then I saw him. For the first time, not a glimmer, not a shadow. He coalesced from the deepest darkness in the corner. Tall, impossibly tall and thin, like a gnarled tree silhouetted against the dead sky. No face, just a deeper darkness where a head should have been. But I could feel his gaze, cold and ancient, fixed on the back of my neck. He raised a long skeletal arm, a hand made of shadow and bone, toward me. The pain in my neck exploded. It felt like my vertebrae were being crushed, ripped out. I fell to my knees, screaming, but the sound caught in my throat. All I could do was pray, louder now, desperately, every fiber of my being focused on the words, the intent. I pictured Nana Emilia's face, her unwavering faith. I clung to that image. The shadowy hand hesitated, inches from my neck. The whispers around me became a furious roar. The cold felt like a physical blow. But I kept praying. I didn't stop. I didn't flinch. And then, as slowly as it had appeared, it began to retreat. The hand withdrew. The figure seemed to dissolve back into the shadows. The whispers faded. The cold eased. The agonizing pain in my neck eased, leaving only that familiar, dull, icy ache. I was left shaking, sobbing on the floor of my empty room. Weeks have passed. The agonizing pain is gone, but this cold throb in my neck, he touches his neck, an unconscious gesture, is a constant reminder. It hasn't returned, not yet. Nana Emilia was right. Prayer was my shield. But some things, once they notice you, never truly look away. So, if your neck aches with that certain cold fire, pray, because you never know what's just out of sight, waiting to claim its due. Some pains are just pains. Others are invitations or warnings that something has noticed you. Can you tell the difference before it's too late? At Urban Echoes, we are the ones who listen closely to the Nana Emilia tales of the world, the whispered legends of afflictions that defy medicine and demand other solutions, other prayers. Want to know more symptoms that are actually the touch of a dark entity? Discover other desperate prayers that were the last line of defense against the unexplainable? Examine these other spine-chilling accounts. They may be the knowledge that keeps you from becoming the next cautionary tale. If you want to sharpen your senses to the dangers that lurk beneath the skin of reality, to understand the warnings before they become your nightly torment, sign up.
Join the congregation of those who listen at Urban Echoes. Here, we learn that sometimes the only thing standing between you and the abyss is a prayer whispered in the dark, or a warning heard in time. Good night, and may your neck remain light and free from unwanted observers.